Okay, everybody, it is now turn 4, and the Eastern Pact is now using nukes to retaliate against the Western Alliance's use last turn. So this may or may not be the last turn. I may play one more turn into turn 5, but I am planning to play a game with some actual players coming along, and there likely won't be gameplay videos of that, but I hope you guys have been enjoying these videos. I have been making a lot of mistakes recently, but I have also been correcting them. I've been making these in advance, so it's really hard because people will tell me mistakes, and I'm already, 2 turns ahead, and so I can't really correct them. So I've been trying to post down below as you guys have seen in the descriptions, just little corrections that I've made here and there. Some really quick things to go over that I just wanted to tell you guys was the little corrections that I've made here and there. So for one, I guess like descriptions of how I've corrected them. So most of the time I've kind of had to just ignore them. So for instance, the submarine that I built in Venezuela a couple turns ago as Russia participated in combat in sinking the U.S. supercarrier off the Canary Islands. What I've choked that down to in this was that I had basically my description of how it got used and destroyed that carrier is that I say that, like how I've corrected it, is that if it had been built in the Black Sea, it could have come 1, 2, fired its cruise missile, and helped out that other submarine that was already in the Atlantic, sink that carrier, and that Russian sub died somehow to a NATO helicopter strike. The other correction that I wanted to make was that this fighter that landed in Amur participated in combat up here in Leningrad, and in this game, air bases and naval bases make no bonuses to movement, so this fighter couldn't have landed here, and my little condolence will be that it just had landed here, and he'll be able to move other places in this turn. So, like I said, I can't correct everything, but hopefully I'm a little bit more wary about it in the future. And also, I do want to thank everybody that does put corrections in the video, because that was one of my big reasons of making this YouTube solo game. I'm not a huge fan of posting these gameplay videos because they are a lot of work and energy, but they help me learn the game because more experienced players or players that just catch my mistakes can list them down below, and I can make them so that when I am playing with friends or other board gamers, I can be a more experienced player. So thank you for all you guys that watch these videos and enjoy them and help me to correct my mistakes. So, getting that out of the way, we have the Eastern Pact's combats against the Western Alliance. As I said, nukes are being used, and they are going on an all-out offensive to try and cripple the Allied war effort for using nukes last turn. So, first off, we have the Chinese re-invasion of Japan. The US came in with these 3 airborne and were able to liberate it, and that did not make the Chinese too happy, as they had their big propaganda boost in taking Alaska. So now they can't let their success be for nothing, so they are coming back into Japan. They've got 2 airborne. An LHD from Alaska is coming back to drop off a tank and infantry, and we had gotten a military intelligence roll, and we're also firing a cruise missile into this territory. One thing to note is that the Chinese also aligned Mongolia this turn. So getting into, we'll go over the different nuclear attacks in the end of turn. Now, of course, the Chinese can't use their air force this turn because it's still in that nuclear blast territory. Up north, the Chinese are using a little bit more, ease on the Americans. The Americans fired those 2 nuclear cruise missiles and missed both. The Chinese are showing a little bit more, peace with the Americans by not firing cruise missiles and instead firing a slurry of non-nuclear weapons at that fleet to try to weaken them up. Also, this fighter from the carrier is launching a little, raid on the, or a precision attack against the Canadian forces, since there is no fighters that can move in, or actually, now that I look at it, these fighters could scramble into that combat, so this fighter won't be going in there. I always end up catching those little things, even though I give these videos a ton of time thinking about them. Alright, and then I guess nuclear weapons being used in East Asia, we have, or Asia as a whole, we have an ICBM going into South Korea, just as a little punishment attack to soften up their forces and also punish them for attacking North Korea and losing us that fighter. And we have an ICBM going into India as a response to firing at the Southeast Asia and also sinking that attack sub. I would have probably fired a sub-launch ballistic missile at one of these targets, but the ICBMs are the strongest and most powerful, and I want results, because the Allies didn't get any, and I don't intend to waste my time using these nuclear weapons against them. Alright, up north, we have a big counter-assault. Now, I was debating on going on the offensive with the Eastern forces in Europe, but I noticed that if we do win this battle for Eastern Europe, that knocks out all the Allied MBTs in the area, and then they're just stuck with small infantry attacks supported by fighters. So hopefully we can blast through these three Western MBTs, take this territory out, and then build some units. We've got a ton of infantry on the board, or getting ready to be placed on the board, so that will help us pave our way through Europe, and we've got the Caliphate going on a major offensive here. The Caliphate Navy, supported by the Russian Navy in the Mediterranean, is going after the French fleet in the Mediterranean, that LHD and sub, and I'm doing this because I just noticed that none of the NATO forces can scramble fighters in, plus that supercarrier in the Canary Islands is down, which means it can't help out this battle. So what we have here is no ordnance being used, but the entirety of the Caliphate Navy and Air Force coming in, trying to blast through these two units and drop off two tanks in Spain. I would have gone for France, but three fighters could have scrambled in, and I don't want to risk those odds of losing two tanks and my Air Force. So Spain will be a nice little beachhead, plus it'll close off the Mediterranean. And then getting in over here, we had one attack that I've already kind of done out because it was simple. That infantry that was left in Mexico is re-invading Western Mexico just to spite the Americans, and we'll probably be reinforcing that Mexican territory. Just kind of help. We've as the Russians, we've pretty much lost South America. It's been a good game, but who knows? My one last ace up my sleeve is this sub-launch ballistic missile. It's the final kind of kiss goodbye to the Americans for taking out all of my South American territories. So I fired a sub-launch ballistic missile from the South Atlantic, and it is coming into the northwest United States. As you can see, there isn't a ton of units there, but they are all high priority units considering airborne, a tank, a fighter. Those all could go to Europe this turn, considering that Mexico is going to likely fall to just the forces in Venezuela and Panama. So taking out those forces will hopefully show the Americans that they shouldn't have tried to stop my South American empire building. Alright, and we will conduct these combats and show you the hopeful success of all of them. See you then. Okay everybody, first things first, the nuclear strikes didn't go as well as planned, but they still, I think they did better in the monetary department rather than the destroying units department. So in Korea, we have a nuclear blast cloud and 3 infantry were taken out. Not too much, and they still have greater forces than us in North Korea, but at least they can't move out this turn. Japan was a hard-pressed battle. It was came pretty close. The Americans did. I was worried because if the combat rounds had gone too far, these airborne couldn't have retreated, or the amphibious assaults, they would have lost the units. But we were able to take it back, and the Americans really don't have the forces to take it from us again for the time being. Sadly, our Alaskan campaign is not looking too well anymore because of that 3-missile strike on the American fleet completely failed, meaning that the US still has naval parity and a bunch of land units on the board that are going to be able to strike at us next turn. Alright, down in India, the Indians lost 6 infantry, so that was pretty nice, and overall the Pacific Coalition lost 14 IPCs, which is pretty huge. That's going to pretty much dampen their ability to do anything. That means they only have $10 to spend next turn, so that's definitely a huge hit to their economy. Europe was probably the most successful theater of the war this turn. The Caliphate and Russian MBTs move in force in Eastern Europe, and the Caliphate has, I guess the Caliphate has done what the Muslims of the early Middle Ages were never able to do, and they have conquered Spain in force. So the Mediterranean is now closed from Allied warships or surface warships, and they sustained no casualties in the battle. Their submarine got first strike, sunk that carrier, and the only downside to this battle was the submerging of this submarine here. We had a drone-supported frigate and helicopter, but no hits on that guy, so we're going to have to deal with him later, and he has the possibility of running away, so that's definitely not great, but Spain was a nice prize, and now we have the NATO forces surrounded in Europe. Again, not a great nuclear attack on the United States. We did get $6 off of them, but only took out 2 airborne, so that wasn't great. But that was all the combats. Not a ton, but they were pretty important battles. So I guess we'll get to place units. I'll come over here so I can more easily grab them. So I guess first off, we will do the Pacific. So we have 1 Chinese infantry coming in here to Alaska. So I definitely want to reinforce this because it is a nice gain if we can hold on to it, or at least a good distraction for the Americans. So I guess we'll save place units for now, just because I want to make some non-coms. Get kind of the whole Chinese empire here. So I guess first off, I want to airlift an infantry. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 into Alaska, because Alaska does have an air base. I think that's mostly it for non-com. We don't have a ton of stuff going on for the Chinese, and they did move just about everything. Now we don't have any sort of threat to 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we don't have any kind of threat to the Chinese mainland. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So that means that for the time being, at least, we could redistribute some forces. We're going to move these 2 infantry into North Korea to help defend. But we don't have a ton of units anyways, so we'll probably keep what we have where it is. So then getting into Chinese place units, as I mentioned before, 1 infantry is going into Alaska off screen. We have 2 new MBTs. I guess 1 will be going into South China, and we'll do 2 in South China. Then we've got a bunch more infantry and random stuff, so we will be doing, so we've got an airborne, and we want him ready for some further conquests, so we'll be placing him there in South China as well. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new infantry. So we'll be doing 3 of those guys into North Korea off screen, and now we have about 10 infantry in North Korea, which is pretty nice. We'll do 1 guy in Manchuria. Let's see. 1 more guy down here in South China. And I can't remember if in the end of turn phase, I think that nukes get taken off. Yeah, the nukes get taken off at the like end of your turn. So, but before IPCs are collected. So, or hold on. Yeah. Okay, so we've got two new infantry, and we will be placing these guys. One will go in Mongolia just to defend against any sort of future airborne assaults on Mongolia. And we will do one more guy in Manchuria. He can kind of, go to North Korea or reinforce other areas. All right. So then, moving on. All right, that's all their place units. So moving on to Russia now. First off, we have over here in the Atlantic, we have another infantry putting up a token defense in Mexico. Maybe he'll get a hit, hopefully. Then over here, so we want to defend some of our gains. Now we did buy a new sub, which will likely, we will put him in the Baltic Sea. See if we can get a new navy going, but he will be able to pester some of the NATO forces up there. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more infantry. So we'll go with, I guess, a couple little non-combat movements. One guy's moving up to there. We'll be building an infantry there. 4. The fighter that was in southern Yakutia will go into Amur just to defend. And we got 3 more infantry and a couple non-combat. So this helicopter, I don't really want him there because he could be destroyed. So we'll move him back to Ukraine. We have a drone, which will go back to Ukraine, and a fighter, which will also go back to Ukraine because he'll be able to... Actually, can't scramble. We don't have that air base. We haven't had the funds to repair it, so those tanks are on their own. We do have 3 more infantry, though. So, we will... Let's see. 1, 2... we're going to rail an infantry from... Here, we'll move them down a little bit. So we've got 2 infantry in Scandinavia. I'm trying to reinforce some of my other places, so we're going to rail one of these guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, into the Balkan states. We'll be building another infantry in Scandinavia just to keep those numbers up. And then also the Caucasus, we're going to rail our last rail move into the Balkans and build another guy in the Caucasus. And I think that is just about it for the Russians. I guess, yeah, that should be just about it. Alright. Although, 1, 2... we'll have 2 guys in the Caucasus. And I just realized you can't really see that. And then we're building 1 more guy up here. Northern Russia is definitely a huge weakness because of the fact that the Allies could launch a easy airborne and naval assault there if they really wanted to from 2 points. So keep that well defended, and it's got nukes. So we don't want to lose those. Now the Caliphate has got a nice beefy purchase. So first off, they have 2 new cruise missiles which will be added to their arsenal. They have a new drone to go on further offensive actions, and so there we go. We got the whole Caliphate there. This drone will go into Iran. We've got 2 more infantry. That'll be shoring up lines. So 1 in South Africa. And 1 in, let's go North Africa. That's pretty important. We don't want to lose the Med again. And a new MBT, which, kind of seeing where we're going to be driving next, we'll go into Iran with him. Lastly, for some non-coms, so we do have 2 tanks in Spain now. This drone will land back on the LHD it came from. and their helicopter that went into Spain will also land on the LHD. Their fighter went 1, 2, so he has 2 movements left. He's going to go... I'm thinking we could... we're going to land the helicopter in Spain itself because... yeah, let's do that. So the helicopter will land in Spain just to keep it reinforced as well as we can. And the fighter will land on the LHD. Alright. And that is it for the Caliphate, I'm pretty sure. All their territories are fairly defended and or not going to be attacked. So that is it for the Eastern Pact turn 4. And I will see you again in the... Or actually, hold on, one last thing. This nuclear mushroom gets removed because it is the end of the turn. So, and those fighters and everything will be able to be used next turn. So I hope to see you guys again in the next video, and thanks for watching. Cobra out.